Okay, Driftwood Residences round 2. The next set of options. So this one, I mean, we kind of ironed it down there after the last set. So these are all sort of minor differences between these. There's nothing too crazy. I'll point out a couple things here. So this wall up here, I mean, existing, it comes out, so I've shortened that by about a foot or so that it basically is in line with that counter. And that's the same on all of them. Same with this here, so we've punched that little window through on the landing of the stairs. So that's the same on all of them as well. Pardon me. I have shown as well the fridge on all of these, because I think existing it's up here, so I've moved that down. That's pretty minor. A lot of the stuff, I mean, you don't have to decide today or anything. Those are all pretty minor things, but one thing to think about when we start to look at like the layout of the actual kitchen and the cabinets and stuff like that is whether you want this to be like full height pantry, or you want to keep the fridge there. Or I was even thinking if this is kind of a nice counter space, maybe you want to move your espresso station over there, and then you have a little more space in the living room. But that's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. So in this option, this is sort of what we had narrowed it down to before, more or less. We have the big U-shaped kitchen. There's definitely room for the dishwasher. You know, you have that there. You have 4 stools. And I did move the sink. So that's one thing. Like, none of this is set in stone for sure. Because in this option, you could just do a line of cabinetry there and do sort of the peninsula coming out there, and then you could basically leave the sink where it is if you want, because I mean, I don't think it's a big deal if it's not centered on the windows or whatever. I don't know, it might look funny, it depends if it would bother you or not, but it's really not a big deal. It's kind of an aesthetic thing. But and it's 3'9" in between there, so it's almost 4 feet, so that's nice and wide, which is great. Now that this is actually drawn to the true dimensions, the house got a little bit narrower than I had it before, so that tightens things up a little bit, but nothing to be too concerned about. And then with this one as well, I also moved all that ductwork that was here. We can tuck it into that corner, basically run it up, because you have that curved corner where the plumbing stack is, and we could basically move that stuff over into that corner, run it up in that exact same spot. It would kind of be hidden by, you know, the edge of that cabinetry, and we could box it in so it looks nice. You don't even know it's there. And then from there we could run it over across the ceiling, basically have another bulkhead there. So then we just sort of have that beam running across the ceiling there that would be dropped from the ceiling, you know, a foot or so, and then you could have a little bulkhead running across there as well that holds that ductwork, and then it goes straight up where it does right now in the room above. So that's not a big deal. What else do we have in this? We're gonna have to reroute a couple of these floor vents. That's not a massive deal either, because it's unfinished in the basement, which is great. Because right now you have one on this side of the wall and one on this side of the wall. Oh, sorry, this one's existing. So I was thinking you probably, in this option, will probably, I don't know, you maybe tuck it into the cabinetry there, and it kind of shoots out at your feet. And then you could put one up there or up there. But that's a pretty minor thing as well. I like this one because the cabinetry all ends there, and then you have that dropped beam in the ceiling, which kind of delineates between the kitchen space and the dining room space, and that keeps all the kitchen stuff kind of by itself in its own. They're connected, but sort of in their own space at the same time. So that works out pretty well. The deck then out here, so this is on the existing foundation, so all the options have the deck right on that existing block foundation, so we don't have to tear that out, and we can just reuse that, and that's fantastic. Saves us a bunch of time and headache and money. And we can definitely do those stairs the whole way across. I just kind of threw those in there, but that's a really minor thing. That's super easy, and that'd be really nice. And then this dashed line here, so this shows the line of the balcony above, so we can reuse that post, or at least the foundation, not the post itself, but we can just keep it in the same spot. Have another post there and another post there resting right on that foundation, which is perfect. And then they're also in line with the railings, so they're not in the middle of anything. They're sort of, you can sort of make them disappear more or less, so they're not going to be too obtrusive, and that's great. So, and I've also shown in all these options opening up this stairway to the basement here, and I've actually trimmed back a bit of this block wall to open it up just a little bit more. I still want to. I don't have a really good solution yet for covering that. That's something I'm still working on, and it's. I'm not really sure how to tackle that yet. We'll have to. I don't know. I think we can incorporate it into the deck, like this railing. Maybe I'm sort of envisioning this railing as that one might you want to maybe have solid, so that you just don't see in there when you're on the deck. The downside is you'll lose a little bit of light in there, but it's going to be so bright anyway. It's not a huge deal if that's only 3 feet tall or something. But then at least you wouldn't have to look into those stairs, and then we'll have to figure out a nice little roof for that as well. And then you definitely have the sliding door on here. So when you take that stuff out, there's plenty of room there for a 5-foot sliding door. Plenty of space for the dining room. So that one, that was this option A 1.1. This is kind of the one that I think was closest sort of to what you're talking about, but then these other ones are sort of variations on that. So this one, if you don't think you need as much counter space, we can trim it back here a little bit. And then in terms of circulation, having this open is pretty nice. Like you come in, maybe you have muddy boots or whatever, and then you just go right into the kitchen. It just makes it easier to walk around. It'll feel a little more open. You have you have a little over 3 feet here and here, so there's plenty of space to get around. You do lose a stool. It depends how often you foresee. I don't know where you're going to have your meals the most, whether it's the dining room table or here. So that's something to think about. Again, we'll move that plumbing and the ductwork over to the side. The kitchen is more or less laid out exactly as you have now. I have shown that fridge moved down a little bit, but that's minor. So once we sort of nail down one of these options, I can kind of do an interior rendering looking this way and just kind of show a few options again with the layouts of the cabinetry and things, just to give you an idea of how it would look. It probably won't be photorealistic, but at least you can sort of visualize it. Again, everything on the exterior basically exactly the same. And then this one, a 1.3. This one, you're getting a lot more. There's a lot more emphasis on the kitchen. Like if you guys foresee having more meals, like the kids are eating here, as opposed to everyone sitting down here, this one might be a little bit better, just because there's definitely, like, you're basically expanding the kitchen and shrinking the dining room a little bit with this one. You'll have way more counter space. The sink is kind of nice here because you can center it between these two windows. So there's plenty of light. You're kind of facing outside as you're standing at the sink. Then you can group the fridge and the stove right beside each other. You still have a nice big island. You have room for a dishwasher in there. And the nice thing about this one is you can leave all this ductwork and stuff right where it is. We can even take one of those floor registers for the furnace and kind of build it in, and then that caps off the cabinetry really nicely. You do have that beam running across the ceiling, which that might look a little funny if you have an island underneath, but again, that's just an aesthetic thing. That's really not a big deal. That's just kind of your preference whether or not you like it. And then you're sort of shrinking the dining space. You're sort of pushing the dining room table over to the side. Like, I know the table that you had in that room right now isn't huge. I think it was only a 4-seater, so maybe, like, if that's the way that you see things going, then you can just stick a little table in the corner, and then maybe, well, even if that's the case, you could always extend this or something too. But anyway, then you're getting that nice circulation all the way around. With lots and lots of counter space, and I think it is kind of a nice feature to have that sink there by the windows too. So that's that one, and then we're getting into this one. So this one's a little different in that I played around with a couple with the door in the existing spot, and this was really the only one that I kind of liked out of it. So your kitchen layout is more or less as you have it right now. Again, the fridge, you can move it up and down, no big deal. But then I was having trouble with the island, but then if you just kind of make it, this big square thing, more or less, you get lots of seats, right? So that it starts to dominate the room. Like, that's going to become a pretty big feature. But again, if you guys foresee having meals at the island as opposed to the dining room table, like, that might be a good option too. But the nice thing about this is this window is completely optional then. You can put it in or not put it in. You can do a small one, a big one, kind of whatever you want to do. But this would definitely be the cheapest out of all these. Maybe not by a lot, but I mean probably a handful of $1,000, maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, who knows. But a little cheaper in that you don't have to touch any of this ductwork. You can basically box that in. You don't have to buy a big sliding door. You don't even necessarily have to cut, an opening in that wall if you don't want to. This opening's already there. You just put in a new door. You don't have to move any plumbing or electrical over here. So this one's pretty efficient in terms of cost. Again, it's going to be a huge difference in terms of the way you use the space, though, with that wall gone and everything. But that's just one. I just wanted to throw that in there, and that really comes down to the only, I think, major benefit besides the cost is the way that it looks in the back. I do think this kind of looks nice. Whether or not you'd even want to match this window, that would be beautiful inside. It would look great on the outside. Those windows aren't going to be the cheapest with the curve, but I mean, they're not going to be unreasonable either. So, and again, you could have the full width stairs running across. You have room up there for like a chair or two and a barbecue, something like that. And that's really the main difference between these two. Because in all those other options with the A's, you have this window, which we're really not going to touch. And so, like we talked about this before, actually, the heights of all these windows are all a little bit different, right? And then it starts to look a little bit pieced together. That said, you can play with that. I mean, because we weren't going to touch this window, but it would be easy enough to, if it's something that you want to do, it's not a big deal. You can make that window a little bit smaller. You have that one there. All those three line up, and then you'd have this sort of big one on the end. But again, that's purely aesthetic stuff, so I don't know. It just depends on your own preferences and tastes and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I still need to come up with, a good solution for covering this, that door access to the basement, because you'll be able to see that, but to protect it from the rain and stuff. So that is, maybe that's it actually. I mean, in terms of the rear elevations, there's not a huge difference either way. And this window, I'm not saying that you have to match this window either. It could just be, it could just be a little window. So it doesn't have to match the curve, anything like that. That'd be a little cheaper. You just do a little small one. But I'm assuming at this point you kind of want to do one of these sliders. You're going to get tons of light that way. It's super functional. And especially with the full width stairs, that's really nice. And then again, you have this great big balcony up there. And then this one, we should just be able to do it basically like a little Juliet balcony. And they're going to look more or less the same between those options. So however you want to tackle the inside, it doesn't really affect this outside layout too much, other than, whether the door is here or whether the door is there. So those are kind of the points I wanted to bring up. I don't think there's anything too important otherwise. It's really the door. That's the thing that's gonna change the layout of the interior, and well, I guess that's about it. But whether you want the sliding door or use that existing opening, but I'm assuming you want to use the sliding door. I just throw that other one in there just kind of as an extra. And then we can kind of fine-tune the interior stuff, and none of that is a big deal. So once you sort of give the go-ahead on one of these other doors, I can polish off those permit drawings. There's a bunch of other drawings here that I haven't shown you, kind of behind-the-scenes stuff for the permit set with the survey and all that. So once we get this ironed out, then those are all sort of the big moves that we need for the permit drawings, and that will more or less be done. And then it's really just details that the building department doesn't care really about your layout of what your millwork or your kitchen island is and stuff. We'll have to show, plumbing. If you want a kitchen sink down here versus down here, we have to show that. But that's, that's about it. We don't have to get too fine a detail for that kind of stuff with them. So, but anyway, that covers most of the stuff. So if you have a look through those, and we'll talk the next couple of days and go from there. All right, talk to you later.